Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Están pegados. Acá, acá y acá. ¿Quieres que los movamos? Sí, ponelos acá en orden. Este es el primero, este es el segundo y este es el tercero. Así, ¿verdad? Sí, así, perfecto. Y ellos van a saber. ¿Este es el primero?
Check. Testing mic. Check. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2. Check. Check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check. Check. Testing mic. 1, 2, 3. 8. Check. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check.
Good morning, everybody. This is the morning workshop session, Cybersecurity Initiatives in by the Global South. Welcome to this session. My name is Carlos Martinez. I'm the Chief Technical Officer for LACNIC, the Latin America Internet Address Registry. It's a pleasure for me to be here. This is actually my first IGF. I'm very proud of the speakers we have today, and I'm very confident that we'll have a wonderful session. So let me tell you a little bit about the format of this session, which has some peculiarities that you should be aware of. We are going to start with an opening panel. My panelists, I will introduce them in a minute. And then we'll introduce you to 3 projects from the Global South that have been funded by an initiative called Seed Alliance, which is an initiative for development and financing ICT projects in the Global South. Seed Alliance has been financing different projects, and during the last cycle, several projects were selected that had to do with cybersecurity, and we believe they are very relevant to this session. So after we have our panel, we have the presentations from the projects. And then this session is a breakout session. We are supposed to break out in groups, and we are supposed to debate within the groups along 3 different topics, which I will introduce them to you right now. One is surveillance versus security. The second is cybersecurity in relation to trade and innovation. And the third one is cybersecurity for internet infrastructure. Don't worry if you don't. If they slip out of your mind, we'll have time to actually go over them again. Why do we believe this is important? Cybersecurity is in everybody's mind, right? It's difficult to see any presentation on any paper or anything about the internet without a mention to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has been one of the hottest topics in the internet for a long time. The threats are varied, the threats are many, and there is a wide consensus among us who work on the internet that having a safe and secure internet is a prerequisite for the internet to become the development tool we want it to be. So I hope this workshop will help us discuss all the things. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our first panel. Sitting right next to me is Mr. Olaf Kolkman from the Internet Society. He's the Chief Internet Technology Officer. Am I right? Okay. From the Internet Society. He's been working in the internet for a long time and has done, in my opinion, a very interesting work in cybersecurity, which I'm pretty sure he will talk about. Right beside Olaf, we have Christine Hoppers from CERT from Brazil. I've known Christine for years and years, and actually I credit her with introducing me to cybersecurity. And then sitting next to Christine, we have Jean-Robert Houtumey. Did I say that more or less all right? Okay, thank you. Jean-Robert comes from Africa CERT, which is a wonderful initiative, which I think we have a lot to learn from. So, Olaf, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So cybersecurity, as Carlos just said, it's a very wide topic, and there's always the risk of boiling the ocean with these very wide topics and trying to address everything that relates to these things. Since the topic is about cybersecurity in the Global South, I want to talk a little bit about an experience that I had last week. But first I want to put that a little bit in a context. And the context that I want to put my approach and my views in, and the description that I'm going to give, is that of collaborative security. Collaborative security is a concept or an approach that we launched in the Internet Society about a year ago, describing some of the properties of a cybersecurity approach towards Internet security that takes into account what the Internet actually is. I'm not talking about the Internet as a packet switch network, but the Internet as the platform for bringing opportunities. That platform has a number of properties. We call those properties the invariant in our own lingo. But it basically says that the Internet is global reach, that you can innovate on the Internet, and that you don't have to ask anybody for permission to innovate. It says that there is an expectation of coherency and integrity. It talks about fundamental properties of the Internet and values and preserving those and taking a risk-based approach when you do cybersecurity. Now that's all big and vague words. But in the implementation, one of the things that is incredibly important in taking into account those values and properties is that security can only be done in collaboration at the scales where action can be taken. So there is an aspect of subsidiarity in taking a cybersecurity approach. Define goals and take action at the smallest possible level with the stakeholders that are involved in these processes. The reason for that is that there is no security tsar on the Internet. The Internet is not, per definition, not centralized. It's a network of networks to which people attach and bring platforms and services, and users connect and get their uses. So there is no central place from which you can manage all of this. It's collaboration and subsidiarity that is important. So last week I was in Nairobi, where we were having a workshop around Internet security. That was done in the context of translating a convention made by the African Union, which is called the Malabo Convention. It's done in 2014. It's the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. That is an effort, a high-level effort, to set the parameters for a regional cybersecurity approach. But it's important that these approaches, these high-level approaches, get translated into actions on the ground. And what we tried to do in Nairobi was, with a number of local experts, talk about what are the several recommendations that we can make in order to get to a next level of implementation of these. And one of the important aspects of that is that we chatted a little bit about what are the specific challenges for African cybersecurity. Well, first is the realization that we're talking about a global internet, a global network. And the cyber threats are essentially similar everywhere around the globe. They're not very different in Africa. But Africa has its specific set of problems. Differs a little bit over the continent. Africa is a big place with many countries, but bandwidth is an issue. The cost of bandwidth is an issue. Power is an issue, so regular blackouts and so on and so forth. Training and manpower, capacity is an issue. And then there are, man-made issues like fraud and sabotage, theft of copper or fiber, and fuel shortage or things like that. In general, you see somewhat older infrastructure. That is an issue too. Older infrastructure at the user and the consumer sides or in the networks means that perhaps the latest security patches are not available. With older Android phones, older mobile platforms, it might be that the newest Android versions cannot be installed. So that gives a whole other dynamic than the dynamic in the Western world. Somewhat of a lack of information sharing. There are some regional platforms that work, AFNOC, AFPIV, the operators forums and the peering forums, but the institutional building still needs to be enhanced. And then there is a lack of robust legislation and enforcement regimes and cross-border collaboration. Now that is also not something that is very specific to Africa, but the level of development there is different. I'm looking at the clock a little bit. I'm okay, good. So what we try to do, following that subsidiarity principle and looking specifically at what we need to do at the internet infrastructure level, we looked at what kind of recommendations we can give at the regional level, at the national level, at the organizational level, and specifically also at the ISP and operator level. And these are perhaps not the most actionable recommendations, but it's preparing for action, I would say. Because that's something you have to take in the back of your head. When you do these type of things, they have to lead to action. Without action, there is no security whatsoever, I would say. So at the regional level, we came to and this paper will be published in the next half year, within half a year, I would say. An African-wide cybersecurity and collaboration and coordination committee. Really trying to get people together and exchange information. Information exchange is incredibly important when it comes to cybersecurity. Being aware of the threats that are out there and being aware at the controls and so on and so forth that you have to implement to at least notice the threats and counter them is incredibly important. Capacity building and knowledge sharing on the Pan-African level is another recommendation. Make sure that there are universities that have programs, that there are online tools that help people build the capacity that is needed to deal with these issues. On the national level, it's important that within the countries, the critical infrastructure is identified and protected. That information exchange, again, is facilitated at the national level. Bring the law enforcement and the local operator community together so that at least they have knowledge of what is going on in their community. Promote IXPs, Internet Exchange Points, because they bring a certain amount of resiliency, but also facilitate collaboration, because people come together at these exchange points. And collaboration, again, helps facilitate information exchange. And for information exchange, you need to trust, and collaboration is the key to that, knowing each other. And finally, public institutions. Public institutions can lead by example. For instance, by implementing a set of security practices. If a TLD is a public institution, for instance, deploying DNSSEC would be an example there. At the ISP and the operational level, we recommend the implementation of baseline security. And here I'm going to make a shameless plug for an initiative that ISOC is deeply involved in, which is the Manners initiative, the Mutual Agrees Norms for Routing Security. a set of very simple baseline practices and actions to be taken by ISPs, and basically signing up that they are willing to do that. This is a form of self-regulation. Manners.org, MANRS.org is the place where you can look up that information. And again, collaboration between the ISPs in the NOCs and so on and so forth. At an institutional level, and this is not typically an African recommendation, I would say, at any institutional level, at an organization, make sure that cybersecurity becomes part of your genome, that it becomes part of your thinking, as well as the operational level as the executive level. Awareness about cybersecurity is something that is needed at that level. It needs to be discussed at the boardroom. Because without that awareness, you might be caught blindsided, and that would impact your business. So those are, at several layers of subsidiarity, as I say, recommendations that push the needle on security forward. And what is important in this context is that the African security is being done by the Africans, that the Kenyan security is done by the Kenyans. And with that, I'm going to hand over. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things while Olaf was talking, most of the best practices in security are out there for a long time. And from our experience in Brazil, the major challenge to implement all those best practices is people. And training people is a challenge. Having people with the understanding and with the technical skills and with the political will and with the resources to do that. So one of the things that we see for these many years that we are working in Brazil and in Latin America, especially with LACNIC and with the whole community, that is very strong, is when you reach to someone telling them that they have a problem, you know, you need to implement the manners routing best practice, you need to implement DNSSEC, or even when we reach to them to say, you know, you have 1,000 machines infected by a botnet in your network, is really, most of them don't know what to do and how to do it, and they don't understand the problem. So it's not only a shared problem, and it is a collaborative problem, because only the owner of the network, only the ISP itself, the government organization itself is capable of implementing the security. There's no one that can come from outside and just magically secure everything. But there's still a mindset in some of these people that, you know, oh, someone will do the security for me. So if I would say one of the challenges is really to make people realize that it is a collaborative effort, that is everyone's role to participate in security. But then we also need to teach them. And even if we go for end user awareness, and you were talking about the whole having Android phones with old versions and updates and everything. So it's not only a challenge that people don't have money to be buying the latest gadget all the time, and there are constraints being put by the vendors that don't allow the updates. So there's a whole ecosystem that's complex. But in Latin America, and I think Africa is the same, we have a lot of people that didn't have the time to learn the technology and then face the security problems. They are getting the first technology already loaded with problems, with security problems, with fraud, with malware, with everything. So it is even harder to teach and to raise awareness, because usually you were talking about the technology and people, they are oblivious. They don't know what you were talking about. So I think these are several of the challenges we are facing in Brazil. And when we talk, excuse me, with other CERTs, security teams in the region, is really how to get the message through. But it's not only to the end user. Sometimes we get to a network that's severely compromised and they didn't have a clue, but not because they didn't want to do it, because they didn't have the knowledge. So I think one of the things we are doing a lot in Brazil and in Latin America is to provide training. In Brazil, NICBR the TOD, we are doing a lot of free trainings, trainings in IPv6 and best practices for ISPs and autonomous systems. DNSSEC, there's a lot of push to using that, to trying to create an infrastructure that's more secure. LACNIC is doing a lot of that in all their conferences. They do special training areas in security, but sometimes we are teaching security and we see that there is a lot of networking that's missing. There's a lot of basic concepts. And even yesterday, OECD was giving a statistic that half Latin America is not connected. But then we are moving to have the other half connected. We are going to have more vulnerable networks. We need more workforce to put those networks forth. And these are all challenges that we need to take care. And then sometimes when people think about security, and I think one of the topics here that is cybersecurity versus surveillance, that some people, they get desperate because the problems are big, and they start to implement control mechanisms, and they think that controlling somewhat the internet would make things more secure, but they are not. Most of the time, they make the network even less secure, and it's a biggest challenge, but it's really to understand, I think what Olaf said, to understand that the network is distributed, that there is no central control, no central security, and this is, I think, a challenge that we need to address. But a lot of good initiatives are out there. There are a lot of people from our experience that the first time they are faced with a security issue is when they wake up, is when they go after the information. So one of the key points is to have people ready and willing to help them, and then collaboration is key. And in the region, we focus a lot into bottom-up collaboration, into having the people come together and then decide on what's the best way to collaborate. Information sharing requires trust. There's no way that you can sign an MOU or do a law say, oh, just share information. People will be suspicious, but when you gain trust, knowing the people, it's amazing how many information sharing happens and how many knowledge sharing happens too. That I think that is very important. So these were my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Your turn, John Robert.
Yes. So I would like to add a little bit on what Christine and Olaf just said, by talking about how we were able in the continent, in the African continent, to deal with the issue with collaboration and trust. So originally, all the different stakeholders were speaking different language. And we had to reposition the debate in terms of economic incentive, in terms of economic loss for the nation, the state. And as the technical community was suffering in putting together resources to build a resilient network and deliver services, facing those challenges, and also with the African leaders pushing forward the ICT agenda, we were able to find a common ground, talking about economic terms, to work together. So what that has bring us, and the impact for that, is that we move from a state before that kind of dialogue, where there were, for example, only 3 security incident response teams on the continent, 2 known national cybersecurity strategy, very few crisis management practices, and also very few initiative of collaborating together to a kind of interesting result that we are seeing. And it's still going. It's a progress still going. So now we have about 8 published national cybersecurity strategy, about 20 CERT teams with 10 members on the global incident response community, 11 teams at an early stage of their capacity building, one exercise per year between all the different stakeholders, and 2 exercises per year between the African stakeholders and their counterparts at the international level. It has also helped the technical community to get more organized and to create different organizations and to empower those organizations to look at their own issue. For example, Olaf mentioned about AFNOG, which is the network operator group, tasked to focus on the issue related to network operation, like routing, naming issue, even application, vendor-related issue, kind of equipment and application use-related issue, and to bring on the table those issues. Afrinic, for example, which was the regional internet registry, has been tasked to look at issues related to IP addresses, ASN numbers, etc. The TLDs, top-level domain with the registry registrar, also being tasked to look at the different issues. The research and education network together to look at the issue the research and education network face in cyberspace and the cyber-related issue, and bring all those issues on the table. And then those organizations founded and formed the organization that I represent, which is Africa CERT, to operationalize what has been found and to bring a set of solutions so that together we can look at how we can prioritize the most urgent on a risk-based approach and find the different kind of solution that we can bring. So what we have done at the Africa CERT level also is that we have been mandated to reach out to the other institutions like the Law Enforcement Committee, ITU, the African Union, the policymakers, to see how together we can sit down at the same table and discuss the challenge we face and find a solution. Also, one of the interesting aspects of that kind of collaborative and trusted environment that we have been building is that we meet several times at the regional level and also one time at the continental level to discuss on the solution and on the progress that every organization and together we are making, and also to plan for the next phase. So that being said, the future looks promising with all the awareness raising activities and the African leaders getting involved with the support of ISOC, engaging the policymakers, and encouraging together with the technical community and also the civil society, the government, encouraging them to come out with the right policy that are operationable, applicable, and to fund those different initiatives. So the outcome, we have started, even if all those work are still on progress, we have started seeing some interesting steps. The national cybersecurity agenda has now been moved at operational level with specific, measurable, and attainable goal, and also an implementation plan with resources required. It has been advocating for the formation of effective incident response team and providing also the foundation of sound policy and strategy, effective legal and regulatory framework, and also stressing the need to build more cyber skills and also a global cybersecurity culture within the African continent. And it has done something very interesting. It has made me advocate for African government, which is rare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Robert, and thank you for the panel. Checking my clock, I think we have time for one or two questions perhaps. We have some remote participation? Okay.
Thank you. We have a question from Fernando Zuniga from Costa Rica, from Refinadora Costarricense de Petróleo, Recope. In many organizations, only when something happens to threaten information security, they take actions in that area. What could be done to change this kind of management?
I'm pondering on this question because it's sort of human nature. In Dutch, we have a saying that you will fill the hole after the cow is drowned. Idioms don't translate well, I recognize. There are lots of cow idioms in Dutch. Anyway, I think that's sort of human nature, that people first have to realize that there is a dependency on that they didn't really realize. Most companies nowadays started off as traditional organizations, traditional companies that were not connected to the net. They were selling bread or coffee, or they were selling digging machines or cars, and suddenly you find that as a retailer you're online. Suddenly you find that that being online comes with dependencies that you've never thought about before. As a recent example, I think the Target personal data breach, where Target was hacked, made people realize that you have a vendor, you are dependent on a service company, and if somebody in that service company does something bad, it has an impact on you as a company. And I think we should share these type of stories. Information sharing is one of the most important pieces in making sure that people understand that they too can be impacted. And then making sure that it is being discussed at, as I said before, within organizations at the board level. That there is a realization that that as a company you rely on for your continuity on security of your ICT infrastructure. That's a long-winded way of saying sharing of things that happened to you may help others to take decisions and may make the overall infrastructure and space around you more secure. I think that's sort of the summary.
We have a microphone for the audience. We have one person, and I have to close the mic line there. Yeah.
Thank you. Lucy Purden from Privacy International. Thank you very much for a really informative talk. Yeah. So I've got two questions, one for Christine and one for Jean.
Excuse me, can you introduce yourself?
Lucy Purden from Privacy International.
Thank you.
So I wanted to know if you could comment a little bit about the legal frameworks which you're operating under in your regions and how cybersecurity strategies are aligning with cybercrime laws or not. Christine, you mentioned cybersecurity versus surveillance and that there's a tendency to try and control behaviour. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about that. And Jean-Robert, you talked about the African Convention on Cybercrime, and I was wondering if you could comment a bit on why only one African Union member has ratified it and what you see as the future going forward with that convention. Thank you.
May I ask a question back? Because you're asking this perhaps with a perspective and experience. Could you share that for a moment?
Not particularly. It's just something that I'm exploring at the moment, and it's just some of your comments just really kind of piqued my interest. It's just something that I'm looking into, so I haven't got anything particular to answer that with.
I would talk a little bit, just like you talked about like legal frameworks and security. So the security issues, they don't wait for you to have legal frameworks or for you to have national strategies. One of the things that we see is that usually when people are discussing the strategies or legal frameworks, they are usually looking at one specific problem and one specific point or some specific problem they want to solve. It usually misses a lot into understanding the intended or unintended consequences of what you are proposing. So there is a lot of discussions, a lot of people that want more data retention, a lot of people that want less data retention, some people that think that no data retention at all is possible. And then I think it goes for all stakeholders to first understand how the network works. And this is a challenge. I can speak more into what we are going through in Brazil, that sometimes people are discussing and they don't have an understanding on what actually is needed, what actually you can have from a specific technology or from a specific requirement. And when I said about security and control, is specifically we see a lot of control mechanisms, like I have to collect all the data. I need to see everything that's happening in a point. That doesn't make any system more secure. It just makes you have more data about what's going on in there. But that actually does not increase the security of the system at all. So it's, but it's, of course, every time that someone needs to push a policy, they say, oh, this is for cybersecurity, or this is for the security of the world. But then one of the things that especially people in this forum need to do is, I think, really to try to speak up and say, okay, what exactly what we talking about? Are we talking about cybersecurity? Are we talking about having more data for investigations? Are we talking about having something else? So there are some mechanisms that are needed that they could be used for control. So also we can't have a point where you won't have any data, because otherwise you won't be able to secure it at all. So it's very complex, but I think that really people need to go out, ask for people for opinions and discuss more that. So in Brazil, there is a lot of bills in the Congress. We have more than 100 of them talking about internet, and they come from all sides. So there is a huge debate. We need to be paying attention. So not necessarily because people say something is good, it will be, but I think it's just a way of, I think, sharing information and sharing knowledge and sharing case studies. So pointing for the first question, for me, that would be the suggestion, to really learn from other people's mistakes. And nowadays, we have a lot of mistakes public out there, and we should be looking for what went wrong and what went well, because sometimes people recovered very well from that. So that question was...
We have one more question. Please keep it as short as possible. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So I would like to add a little bit on what Christine just said. So one of the challenge coming from the technical community, one of the challenge that we face is with different countries being at a different level in their maturity curve. It was difficult to understand each other. So at some point, we needed to have a common understanding for certain things in order to be able to talk between each other. In relation with the previous question, I will, for example, give you an example. Few of the different incidents that happened recently against different networks in Africa, we have seen that through different information that we had. But we don't, for example, have a common understanding of what responsible disclosure means. And sometimes you end up reporting issue to someone and have, as a response back, a lawyer contacting you and threatening you to put you into court. Those are those kind of issues that the convention, and again, it might need to have more work around it, but those are the issues that we need policymakers to come up with a kind of common understanding on how we discuss those issues that we are facing and how we work together on those type of challenge. Thank you.
Again, and excuse me for not realizing that it was your turn. So we have one more question. Please, if you can keep it as short as possible.
Yes, Louise Bennett, BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. One area that I was surprised not to hear you speak about was internet-enabled mobile financial transactions, which seem to have taken off, particularly in Africa, much earlier than the UK, say. And I haven't heard much about there being security problems on those for instance, in Kenya. However, in the UK, where we've only just started doing a lot of internet-enabled mobile transactions, there are already really serious cybersecurity problems. So I wondered if there were things we could learn about how you have approached that. Thank you.
Okay. So first of all, you are right. If I was a hacker, and if I have to target infrastructure in Kenya, for example, I won't look at network provider. I will target the mobile operator because that's where, for me, again, I'm not a hacker, but that's where a real value is. But Olaf mentioned about some action done with the different operators and some recommendations that are coming up. And it's in prevision of that. So the future of ICT in Africa is through the mobile network. So there are a lot of applications, a lot of services that have been pushed through the mobile means. And we have been looking at that at the operator level, a mobile operator, at also the application provider and the vendor level to come up with some recommendation that can help take some steps further in order to prevent those kind of issues.
Yeah, good to see you here, Louise. The thing that I think we touched upon it in the hallway conversation a little bit around mobile payments. The thing is, you know, if it comes to cybersecurity and if it comes to talking about it, where do you put the perimeter of what your focus of the day is? And in the discussions that we had last week, that was just not the focus. That said, obviously, if you do the risk-based analysis, that is where the most value at this moment in the cyber economy of Africa is. In the other places in the cyber economy, there is not much value yet. So I think that one of the, obviously that there needs to be a lot of attention on the value and the vulnerabilities of mobile payworks, but there is also the opportunities to start with a building value in the other parts of the internet now together with building the capacity. So work more from building capacity and security at the same time, which is always better than patching after the fact. So I think the two things need to go together.
So thank you very much. This was a very, very, very interesting segment. And now is the time, as I described when we opened the session, we are going to move to the second segment. This is where we have the presentation from the C3 Seed Alliance grantees. These are 3 development projects that were financed by the Seed Alliance. Seed Alliance is formed by 3 of the RIRs, APNIC, AFRINIC, and LACNIC, that decided to come together and form this alliance and provide funding for these technology projects. These 3 projects that we have here are related to cybersecurity. And the first one that we are going to present is from Tonga by Andrew Toimoana, who is working on developing a CERT for Tonga. Second will be Marcelo Palma Salas from Unicamp, working on Tor Security. And finally, closing this segment will be Erika Vega from Colombia, talking to us about BGP security. So, Andrew?
Thank you and good morning. It has been introduced. My name is Andrew Toimana, and I'm from the Tonga CERT. I'd like to thank the Seed Alliance for the opportunity that has been given to me to present today. Basically, after listening to the previous presentations, you might be thinking, what is important? Why is it so unique for Tonga to put setting up their CERT as a project? And I would like to introduce this to you, and probably you can see why is it important for us. In Tonga, I'm not sure whether everybody know where Tonga is. I get that a lot when I travel. And I introduce myself, I'm from Tonga, and everybody says, oh, where is Tonga? So I'm going to introduce Tonga to you as well. Tonga, it's a very small Pacific island. And the initiative for setting up the CERT, as we went through the process, we didn't know that what we were trying to do would be the first national CERT in the South Pacific. And we had some challenges. And with the assistance of APNIC, we had come up with some solutions. As you can see, Tonga made up of 177 islands, and about 52 islands are inhabited. The total population is about a little over 100,000 people in there. And the total land area is 750 square kilometers. Tonga wanted to move forward with technology, so they introduced the fiber optics, was launched in August 2013. This is one of the tools that support economic and social developments of Tonga, as it's been defined by the government. Also, it brings enormous benefits and open up opportunities for the people. This tool can be very dangerous if we cannot monitor and use it for the right purposes, as you may know and heard of from the previous presentations. So what the government did on December 13, 2013, 2013, the cabinet approved to establish the Cyber Challenge Task Force. A task force provides quarterly report to the cabinet, and one of the mandates for the Cyber Challenge Task Force is under terms of reference was technical assistance with entitled to setting up of a Tonga Computer Emergency Response Team, which is the CERT. As we starting to our preparation for engaging or launching the Tonga CERT, we became affiliated with some organizations, and we affiliate with the Tonga Council, with the Council of Europe. This is by engaging in a classy projects, which is training our legal officers and our prosecutors to understand more about the issues of cybersecurity. And also we had some visit to Sri Lanka CERT and also Malicious CERT, which they contribute a lot to putting up the Tonga CERT. And also we have appointed EPINIC to be the Tonga CERT technical advisor, which is they providing some technical training and technical advice for the Tonga CERT. And with the assistance of the EPINIC, Tonga CERT was officially launched in July 2016, which is last July. And the CERT is being organized under the Ministry of Maytech, where the Department for Information and Communications is under. And we have come up with different phases where we can set up the Tonga CERT. First one is the setting up the Tonga CERT. We have phase 1 and phase 2 going on in parallel, and also developing the procedures and policies also going on at the same time. So we have 4 different phases for launching for developing the Tonga CERT. As we proceed with our process of setting up the CERT, and as EPINIC introduced us to ISIF Asia, we were lucky to be the recipient of the small grant fund. The fund is used to develop the phase 1 and phase 2, as I was showing you earlier. And also government and other partners are contributing with providing manpower resources, office facilities, and other equipment. This is the organization for the Tonga CERT. As you can see, we have a board that manages or steer the CERT, and we have the operations specialists, depending on EPINIC. And in the agency liaison officers, this is very important for us because we engage our ISPs, and we have signed MOU with 3 ISPs in Tonga, and they assign 2 liaison officers from each to be part of our team. And so it's important that when an incident happens, we have to liaise with them and also go through the process so we can move the process faster. And I believe that's the end of my presentation, and you're welcome to make any comment or questions.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I would like to invite Marcelo Palma to the stage, who's going to present us on Tor Security.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. Thank you for the convite to this space, this important space. In my case, I presented TorBot. This is a protection to the Tor network against malicious traffic. Okay, this project we have the support to free DLACNet internet with the thank you to Caroline, Laura, and the project Frida to support this project. We have a team of the Unicamp University, the Security Laboratory Alaska in Campinas, Brazil. Okay, please, Hiram, do you know the third? Someone? Oh no. Okay, let's go. Tor previously is an acronym of the Onion Router. It's a relay network that enables anonymous communication between different applications and users. It works over the TCP and protects your privacy and identity on the internet. The principal problem is that Tor try to protect your information against corporate and government target mass surveillance. Despite being used mainly by activists, journalists, and other peoples, Tor carry 30 times more malicious traffic compared with other networks. This is a big problem. But how does Tor works? Tor uses the concept of the onion layers. For example, many volunteers work with volunteer operating servers using three relays. The first name is guard, middle, and exit. And it applied security distributed. How? Each router knows only the sender and the receiver to that work. For example, we have here a client to try to connect to other server and use three relays to connect, or three relays that support to the communication over Tor. The problem is, for example, that the hidden service, there are a lot of malicious traffic. I talk botnets, malware, traffic to peer-to-peer, etc. I don't know. There are a lot of kind. And for example, 84% of the hidden service are up for less than 5 days. And the other problem is 100 new hidden services come online every day. For example, we have that the 50% of these hidden services are drugs, market, fraud, bitcoins, and other kinds. In our project, our proposed is divided in three phases. First, collect the malicious traffic, analyze and classify, and following, tracing and blocking. This includes setting up a network capture and rerouting of the begin traffic, obviously, and develop a system for analyze, backtracking, and blocking against malicious traffic. This is very difficult because the information or the traffic of the Tor is all encrypted. And apply to recognize to block a malicious traffic to Tor project. We use different tools like traffic analyze, IDs is identifiers traffic system, and VirusTotal, that's a project of Google to analyze the traffic. And other techniques like machine learning, that is a new revolutionary area in the intelligence artificial, and use the metadata analyzing. Our architecture work in the final relay named exit that analyze the traffic using the tools, say that, machine learning IDs, and collect this information. For example, in our case that we can collect the malware, we try to analyze with honeypots and other kinds of tools. Okay. And obviously the benign traffic is entered to the router or to the relay TORT. Okay. This is the a resume of the project, and this is, for example, the traffic of TORT flows in South America. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. And yeah, this applause is okay. Don't be shy. And I would like to invite our third of the grantee, Erika, to the stage. A comment for the audience, Erika will present in Spanish, and I trust that we have quite a Spanish-speaking audience here, but I will provide a summary of the project in English after she finishes.
Good morning. I offer my apologies because I don't speak best English. I will make my presentation in Spanish. Bueno, mi proyecto es acerca de la validación en las rutas de origen a nivel de BGP. Pues actualmente nosotros en Renata tenemos una red nacional en donde conectamos a todos los actores de ciencia, tecnología e innovación de Colombia. Y pues la idea es realizar este proyecto, la implementación del proyecto en toda la infraestructura de nuestra red. El objetivo, como les estaba comentando, es realizar la validación de todo el contenido de las rutas que van a transitar a nivel de BGP en toda la red nacional. Pues digamos que con esto vamos a dar un paso bastante grande hacia el aseguramiento que le vamos a entregar a nuestra red académica, y pues vamos a llenar de nuevas experiencias a toda la comunidad académica del país, de nuestro país, de Colombia, con nuevas prácticas, ya que este proyecto nunca se ha realizado a nivel mundial como implementación en una red nacional. Bueno, quiero contarles un poquito qué es Renata. Renata es la Red Nacional Académica de Tecnología Avanzada de Colombia. Pues digamos que nuestra misión es conectar a todas las instituciones, a todas las entidades que hacen parte del Sistema Nacional de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación, es decir, conectamos a todas las universidades, todos los colegios, todos los centros de investigación, museos, hospitales, y bajo esta red que conectamos les entregamos servicios de colaboración para contribuir a toda la parte investigativa del país. Aquí podemos ver los nodos que componen nuestra red nacional. En total son 22 nodos y la idea es realizar la implementación de la validación en cada uno de los nodos que tenemos ahí. Toda la información, todos los anuncios que se hacen van a estar andando por toda nuestra red. En cada uno de estos nodos vamos a tener un validador en donde vamos a encontrar rutas que son válidas, rutas que no se encuentran o rutas que pueden ser inválidas. Esto depende de realizar la firma de nuestros recursos. Aquí encontramos, quiero mostrarles este mapa porque aquí encontramos los puntos de intercambio que vamos a tener. Aparte de los 22 nodos, vamos a tener unos puntos de intercambio de información que son bastante importantes, ya que en uno nos conectamos con la red Clara, que es la red que nos conecta con más de 3.000 instituciones a nivel mundial educativas. Tenemos la conexión con el NAP a nivel de Colombia, tenemos la conexión con los proveedores o el operador de internet que actualmente es Telefónica, y la idea es realizar pues la validación puntualmente también en estos puntos de intercambio, que es en donde vamos a encontrar pues realizar la validación del mayor número de rutas. Así que, como les comentaba, pues el proyecto, lo que les estoy diciendo es realizar la implementación del proyecto en todo el backbone de nuestra red. Y pues nos vamos a centrar bastante y le vamos a prestar bastante atención a todos los puntos de interconexión que vamos a tener allí. Aquí quiero mostrarles un poquito, hablarles un poquito más de una parte más técnica de lo que va a ser el proyecto. La idea es utilizar el RPKI, que es, pues digamos que en donde vamos a hacer la firma de nuestros recursos. Cuando hablo de recursos me refiero a todo el direccionamiento IP y números de sistemas autónomos que tenemos. Actualmente en todas las instituciones que están conectadas en nuestra red cuentan algunas con direccionamiento que nosotros les entregamos, que nos lo entregó LACNIC, y otras tienen su direccionamiento propio, que también fue entregado por LACNIC, o el direccionamiento de sus proveedores de internet. Así que la idea es que actualmente estamos entregando capacitaciones acerca de la implementación del proyecto para enseñarles cómo realizar esta firma de los recursos, cómo realizar, pues en realidad ellos lo único que tienen que hacer es realizar la firma de los recursos, porque nosotros pues vamos a realizar la implementación del validador y vamos a utilizar el repositorio que tenemos en LACNIC hosteado para realizar, pues digamos, como este check de que estas rutas ya están firmadas y que pueden transitar por nuestra red. Este proyecto se dividió en 4 actividades. Como les decía, se hizo, pues digamos que la comunicación del proyecto a nivel nacional, ya que pues vamos a impactar, actualmente tenemos conectadas a 220 instituciones, entonces, y pues se están conectando más, ya que pues la red ha crecido bastante. Entonces se hizo la comunicación de qué se trata el proyecto, cómo lo vamos a hacer. El segundo paso fue realizar una formación, realizamos unos seminarios virtuales en donde explicamos cómo realizar la firma de los recursos, porque es importante, digamos que la idea de este proyecto es poder entregarle alguna solución a varios ataques que se han presentado actualmente, que es el tema del secuestro de las rutas. Entonces creo que con esto podríamos aportar bastante, y a nivel de una red académica, en el mundo hay varias redes académicas, pero pues nunca se ha hecho una implementación como tal. El tercer paso pues es realizar la configuración en todos los nodos de la red, y el cuarto pues es empezar a realizar como los ajustes de lo que vamos encontrando, ¿no? Vamos a ir encontrando muchas rutas que pueden ser inválidas, otras que no, otras que debemos permitir, y bueno, realizar el estudio de esto. Para esto tenemos ya casi que 7 meses nos quedan para terminar con el proyecto, entonces pues estamos trabajando en ello. Digamos que pues esto se los he mencionado en toda la presentación, pero pues es importante realizar como este énfasis de que el impacto y como tal la innovación del proyecto es que esta implementación no se ha hecho a nivel mundial en una red nacional. Tenemos implementaciones como estas en puntos de interconexión, que es el punto de interconexión de Costa Rica, en el punto de interconexión de Ecuador, respectivamente en los NAP de estos países, más pues en esta implementación vamos a manejar bastante número de rutas y de validadores. Entonces pues es por esto que es tan importante realizar y poder realizarlo y poder entregarles a ustedes unas unos resultados de valor. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Erika. Just a brief summary of the project, although the slides were in English. Renata is an academic network in Colombia. It's a huge network, actually. It spans the whole country. And they have a problem that they want to validate the BGP routes that are present in the network. And if you've been following some discussions on the ATF, and actually some of us who are here are somewhat guilty of that, if you will, there is a technology called the RPKI, or the Resource Public Key Infrastructure, that can be used and applied to validate routes. And Renata is willing to actually commit a lot of effort with the support of the SEED Alliance in order to probably do one of the largest deployments of RPKI that the world has seen so far. That is an amazing project in itself. So thank you very much, Erika.
Thank you.
So we should move now to the third segment of this session. We were supposed to break out in groups and have debates, closed debates. The thing is, we only have around 20 minutes left, and we sort of believe that it's too short for that kind of dynamic. So we are doing something else instead, which I believe you will actually prefer. We are actually opening the floor for your questions. I see some hands up already. And remember that the questions can be for either of the panelists or also for the grantees as well. You can make questions in general, or you make directed questions. So, our dear audience, the floor is yours. You want to say something?
Yeah, in the meantime, I just want to give a thumbs up to the work that Erika just presented. I alluded to it before that at the ISP level, there are specific actions people can take in order to make the routing system more resilient. The routing system is the system that connects the network of networks and makes sure that the global connectivity is there. Now, the security of that system is notoriously bad. And what Erika just demonstrated is that there is an ISP in Colombia, the Academic Network ISP, that has taken an action to validate what is going on their routing infrastructure. And that is exactly one of these things that we call for in the Manners manifesto that I was referring earlier. It's exactly that type of action that will make the internet more secure, and which is taken at the level of the ISP and enhances the overall internet infrastructure. So I wanted to add that with a sort of applause. Over to the questions.
So we have a mic in the floor. So who wants to go first? Have a question? Second row.
Hi, good morning. Fernanda from American University. I'd like to ask a question to the panel regarding this idea of global south. If we think in terms of global south and cybersecurity and infrastructure vulnerability, is there something specific that we should discuss here regarding the dependence between the cyber south on the infrastructure of the north? I'm thinking specifically on IXPs and Africa and Europe, Latin America and the US. Is there something specific that we should discuss here in regard to risks of surveillance that is not necessarily on your territory, but you are dependent on jurisdiction and other issues regarding these other continents and space? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I touched upon that during the presentation that I gave. There are a few things that are indeed specific to the Global South, and I would say dependency on traffic going even off continent in some cases is not only indeed an economic, it's also a security issue. specifically in the context of pervasive monitoring and surveillance. So yes, IXPs play a major role in keeping your traffic local, and keeping your traffic local has the benefit of A, you don't have to pay for your transit, so you keep the dollars in your pocket, and B, making sure that traffic that doesn't necessarily have to leave your perimeters doesn't leave your perimeters, and therefore cannot be looked at by third parties. Now, I think that it's important that IXPs are at the beginning of a process that will keep your traffic in your country. Because if you have an IXP, that doesn't necessarily mean that the services that you're connecting to are connected to that IXP. The cloud is everywhere. And if you connect to a specific service, Amazon or Netflix or what have you, you might not find your traffic being confined to your locality. It might actually go out far away. So I think IXPs are the first step in getting content more locally, but local content is an important piece of that. It's an important piece of keeping data globally. And there is a pervasive monitoring angle to that. So yes, there is a trust issue, I would say. Maybe not what we traditionally would call cybersecurity, but certainly a trust issue. I hope that answers your question.
Questions? Everybody's.
Yeah, 4 of them.
So for Tonga CERT, I would be interested to know a little bit about how you stand your capacity in terms of tooling. For example, what we have been doing in the African continent is to focus on open source tools in order to put the financial resources on building the human skills. So that was the one thing. The second thing is that we have been doing also an initiative of helping each other, like a team knowing a set of tools and being at a certain maturity level using those tools, being able to help other teams around them to stand their capacity. So I would be interested to know your experience in terms of toolings and what you have been using. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I think this is a very important question, especially for us in the Pacific, where funding is very limited. As you know, if we go with the standard applications, requires a license and stuff. So what we have found out in the government, and it is true probably in all the Pacific Islands, there's a lot of open source engagement in the Pacific. And as we visit the other countries like Sri Lanka, they're also engaged heavily on using open source. So in Tonga, we also using open source, but we also have a open standard approach for the government, where also there are other softwares like Microsoft and stuff like that that we also engage on. But we want to make sure that they get the licensing and everything sorted before they put it on. In regards to capacity building, yes, we are engaging on some training. We, as a CERT, we have put up training once a month with all our ministries, technicians, where we come in and share knowledge, and also they share any new things that they have come across. even some challenges that they facing. It's one important thing is that we engage the ISPs technician, as we have been stressed here today, how important they are in making sure that the routing is all secured. We have learned a lot from them because most of our traffic are going through their infrastructure. And what they have been done there and sharing with us, it's really important for us. Also, one thing that we also work together with is the police, Tonga police, law enforcement. Their capacity in regards to forensics side, it's not yet up there, so we're trying our best to learn ourselves how to do it right, and also assist them in different ways. And that's how we create a platform where we can share knowledge. We also hold forums weekly and monthly, and it's becoming an important forum for us.
Any questions from the room? If not, I do have a question. Oh, sure.
So yeah, I have a question to the room. I find this always a little bit awkward. We're sitting on the stage and we're treated as oracles while we just share a perspective. And I actually wonder if there are people in the room who say, yeah, the perspective that you bring, subsidiarity, collaboration, and so on and so forth, it's all good and nice, but I've tried this and I stumbled. I actually wonder if there are people in the room who have experiences that are, that can be shared, from which we can learn, from which we as an audience together can learn. So, does anybody wants to volunteer something? Yeah, in the back I see a hand.
Hi, thank you. My name is Veronica Donoso, and I'm the Executive Director of InHope. InHope is an international association of internet hotlines where citizens can report child sexual abuse material found on the internet. So, as you can imagine, we are confronted as a network. We are a network currently present in 46 countries in all continents. And we are confronted with the issue of when the content is assessed, or when one of our hotlines get this content, what is the definition of illegal? What is considered as child pornography? I would like to say we prefer to use the term child abuse sexual material, because it's not a child being willingly and posing for pictures or for videos, of course. But most of the legislation around the world these days talk about child pornography, unfortunately. So we have been discussing this issue for 16 years already. And what we do is when one of our members' hotlines finds content that they assess as illegal according to their jurisdiction, then they trace that content. They trace the content, find out where that content is hosted, and then they pass on the report to the other hotline where that content is hosted, so that that hotline in that country can deal both with law enforcement, with the police for investigation, and with the ISP, so that the content can be taken down very quickly to avoid re-victimization, but making sure there is the right protocol in place between the industry and the police, so that taking down that content doesn't affect potential ongoing investigations, which would actually make the matter worse and would not help us help a victim or a child being rescued on time. I think we haven't found a better solution for this problem. We still have the issue of what is the definition of child pornography in the different jurisdictions we work with, but we've managed to work with partners around the world, with industry, with with companies such as Facebook, Google, with Microsoft. We are working with Europol in Europe, with Interpol on a global level. We are contributing also with technology, with the hashes that that our platform creates with Interpol. So we contribute to global efforts to these, to fighting this. So I think this is a very concrete example of one way in which we can cooperate, like society, governments, ministries of justice, ICT ministries, industry, ISPs. So I wouldn't say we are successful, but I think we've managed to deal with an issue in a way that we can get much better. But I think these kind of models could be applied to other areas of cybercrime. And I would like also to make a point that when it comes to cybercrime, I think people usually tend to think about either identity theft or fraud, financial fraud. But let's not forget that victims are also children, they're also people, and that these are issues, there are new waves or new kinds of crimes being committed and facilitated through new technologies, and we should also put them in the front of this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think this is a very clear and urgent example, actually, of an issue that is notoriously hard to fight and very important to fight. And I hear a few aspects around that subsidiarity that I was talking about. First, it is subsidiary in its topic. Child abuse is a serious topic, and organizing your efforts around that topic makes you more effective, makes you create the network of trust between your partner organizations, but also at the local level, you know how to speak to the persons and the institutions that are involved, and it makes it more effective. Another thing that I heard, and which we hardly ever really speak about, is that security obviously is not something that you fix once. It is something that is constantly ongoing. You need to be sharp, and specifically with a nasty subject like child abuse, there is a constant arms race. So being vigilant about security or that specific security topic, but also more in general, is something that is very important. Security is not a matter of putting a bunch of controls in place, but is a mindset of following developments and making sure you continue to be on top. And I think I heard that all in your excellent example. Thank you.
I think we have.
I think you want to respond back. I see you.
We have a remote question.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Okay.
So we have a question from Trevor Phipps from St. Kitts Nevis. His question is, how should a small island state with limited resources start the process of developing a CERT? Our population is about 40,000. That's his question.
For Andrew, I guess. The mic? Yeah.
Sorry. I think this question is relate to us, especially we are one of those small island states. It is true that trying to organize and establish a CERT is not an easy task. As you know, that it requires resources and capacity to build a CERT. And as I presented earlier, what we have done, we do a lot of collaboration and partnership. And first, we have to identify a technical champion to start with. And that's when we engage APNIC. And also we identify those who have a lot of engagement with technology. That's where we identify the ISPs. And we also identify people within the organization where you can be pulled out and start up the CERT. One thing that is unique that we have done in Tonga especially, that we share resources. One of the things that one of the ISP done is provide an office space for the CERT. And also, they also provide some of the equipment to start up the CERT. And it's part of our initial relationship with them. And we have signed an MOU with them also about engaging their staff, especially the liaison officers, in some of the cases that come across the CERT. And to me, if we are to address this in a smaller nation like Tonga, and it might be true to all the small island states, cooperation and networking, and also partnership with organizations that can assist and help you establish, it's a key factor for establishing a CERT. Obviously, we can't do it on our own without the assistance from these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much for the audience. This was a very enlightening session. Thank you to our panelists. And I would ask for a round of applause for all of us, actually. Thank you very much. We make it.